I call the member for Fisher.
Thanks, Madam Deputy Speaker. Mental health has been one of those issues that has been one of the 4 pillars that I have staked my parliamentary career on. It's very, very important to me because I know it's important to the people of Fisher. I know it's important to almost every Australian. Around 8 Australians take their own lives each and every single day. And for every person that takes their own life, 30 attempt it. Those statistics are chilling, and they impact on so many people. When one person decides to take their own life or try, the knock-on effect for friends and family and co-workers is unbelievably devastating. It impacts, at least directly, putting aside friends, family, co-workers, it impacts on 240 people every day, and that's just those who are seeking to take their own lives. I'm proud to say that I am the co-chair of the Parliamentary Friends of Mental Health, and at every opportunity in the last 9 years I've come into this place or the chamber or in public speaking and have taken the opportunity to speak about the prevalence of mental health and how we care for those people and their families. This is not going to be a beat up on the government because this has been a very long journey that I have walked for many, many years. But governments, federal, of all persuasions, state, just do not do enough. I've said before this government, and having said that, I've said before this government does not get mental health, and I mean it. They don't understand the pressure faced by millions of Australians, their families and their loved ones. I believe that this government doesn't get the impact of mental health on Australia as a whole, our economy, our productivity and all aspects of our lives. Nearly half of all Australians will experience mental illness in their lifetime, and at least 1 in 5 experience some form of mental illness in any given year. Just think about those figures. Nearly half of all Australians will experience mental illness in their lifetime. We should never forget that the first thing the current government did when it came to power was to cut the number of Medicare subsidised psychologist visits from 20 down to 10 for a period over a year. This increase of 20 visits was introduced by the Coalition during the COVID-19 era, and the decision by this government to remove it was an indication that they simply do not understand the huge impact of mental health on everyday Australians. As Suicide Prevention Australia CEO Niamh Murray said at the time, the decision was very concerning when distress within the community was high. As she said, and I quote, "The decision to remove extra mental health supports at a time when interest rates are rising, housing pressure is growing and distress is high is baffling and very concerning." The decision had an immediate impact when, during the continuing cost of living crisis, many Australians were forced to compromise their mental health care and even postpone critical mental health care. From opposition, we've been leading the way on mental health, and I'm proud of what we have achieved, especially in my own seat of Fisher. Now, many of the things that I'm about to talk about were things that and programs that we were able to achieve whilst we were in government. Since my election in 2016, with the support of the then Coalition federal government, I want to send a shout out to the best health minister this country has ever seen, and that was Greg Hunt, the member for Flinders. The Sunshine Coast has become a true leader in mental health research and treatment. The then Coalition federal government funded more than $30 million worth of cutting-edge mental health projects on the Sunshine Coast, including $8.3 million for a national PTSD centre managed by the USC Thompson Institute, $11.8 million for research and treatment programs into dementia, youth mental health and suicide at the Mind and Neuroscience Centre at the Thompson Institute, $7.3 million for construction and continued operation of Australia's first residential eating disorder facility in my hometown of Mooloolah Valley. We put $3.2 million towards an Australian first eating disorder treatment trial delivered through the Sunshine Coast Primary Health Network. We funded a brand new health headspace in Caloundra to tackle youth mental health. Further funding for the Nurture Festival, which is on again this weekend. The Nurture Festival connects young people and their families with local mental health support services. This is in addition to the $53 million out of the Liberal National Government's record $1.45 billion in funding for community mental health services in our then last budget. $53 million were allocated to the Sunshine Coast Primary Health Network. I'm also co-chair of the Parliamentary Friends of Eating Disorders, again an issue of huge and growing importance in our society. As co-chair, I can say we have quite a lot planned for this year, and I'm especially proud of the Coalition Government's decision to provide $3.2 million in an Australian first pilot project to improve the treatment of care of people with eating disorders in Fisher. It was based on the building of Australia's first residential eating disorder facility that Greg Hunt and I worked together to secure around $70 million to roll out one of those residential eating disorder facilities in every state in this country. Through the Butterfly Foundation, $1.4 million was provided to run a pilot project on the Sunshine Coast. The national pilot was supporting over 240 patients and trialling new ways to support people with eating disorders, which will ultimately inform future support for patients around Australia. I want to send a big shout out to Mark and Gai Forbes from NDD, who were the masterminds, the masterminds of the building of Australia's first residential eating disorder facility. They've moved on from Wandi Nerida and Butterfly and have now created their own purpose-built step-up, step-down facility, which I was again at just on Friday. Mark and Gai Forbes are amazing Australians who have given so much to our local community. They've won all sorts of citizenship prizes, but no prize can really reflect the amount of time, blood, sweat and tears and money that Mark and Gai Forbes have put into caring for Australians with eating disorders. Madam Deputy Speaker, eating disorders are an insidious disease which impacts on not exclusively but particularly young people, young Australians, but particularly young women. The advent of social media has seen an explosion of eating disorders in our community, and the member for Flinders and I have worked together very, very hard on social media issues. She's done a terrific job, but we've just got to be able to get kids off devices, where kids are constantly bombarded with images of, the perfect body that are almost entirely unattainable. Whether you're a young boy, the social media platforms are constantly pumping images of six-packs to young boys and the so-called perfect body for young women. It is incredibly sad that the age of people who are suffering from eating disorders just gets younger and younger and younger. And what most people don't realise, that more Australians die of eating disorders in this country than people who are killed on our roads. More Australians die from eating disorders than are killed on our roads. We have to do better. We have to do better in relation to the care of people with mental health problems right across the board, and in particular in relation to eating disorders.
I thank the member.
Authorised by Andrew Wallace, LNP, Boccarina, Queensland.